I'm not sure we're going to be watching a more infuriating game than that 0-0 against Newcastle all season long. Points shared, two huge chances missed by Fred and by Rashford at the end. A referee who was just, what the fuck were all the decisions? I'd love to see the justification for how that wasn't a penalty on Jadon Sancho. But it's a game where Manchester United, points shared, points dropped. You can decide, you can describe it however you want to. Newcastle outpressed us, outran us. It felt a little bit like Brentford in the first half, where we were just like half a yard short to everything. Every duel was lost. Absolutely just not at the races there. The second half, we were kind of camped in Newcastle's half. But against the low block, without Christian Eriksen, Man United had no creativity. I think we had 2 shots on target the entire game. Newcastle were far more threatening. Newcastle should have scored in that first half when Joe Linton hit the post twice, somehow. We were lucky there. But what an infuriating game that was to watch. And those 2 chances at the end there, that was going to be, well, it looked like it could have been. It should have been with Fred and Rashford at the end there. One of those games where we didn't play that well. We came away with the 3 points and we can look back at it and say, right, these are the things we got wrong. Let's improve in these areas. Fred, how are you missing that? I honestly, I'm speechless. I'm genuinely speechless how Fred missed that. Rashford made the opportunity, ran around the goalkeeper, looked up, saw Fred. He's there. The fucking empty net, dude. What are you doing, Fred? That was the performance that typifies why United fans are angry with Fred. Fred is not going to ever be the Eriksen alternative inside this United setup. I think we've seen that, and we can fairly make that judgment now. We kind of knew that anyway. But Marcus Rashford again towards the end. The mad thing is, if that was Ronaldo, that's definitely going in. So there's going to be a sort of an analysis that's going to be like, oh, Ten Hag made a huge mistake taking Ronaldo off for Rashford. I don't think he did. You could have argued that you could have taken off Sancho instead of Ronaldo. Yeah, potentially. I think that's a bit of a fair argument. But Rashford, United, missing gilt-edged chances. We haven't been doing that much in the last few games. We didn't create much today at all. And you know why we didn't create much. We didn't have this bloke on the pitch. United, with and without Christian Eriksen, are like chalk and cheese. We were beaten. Well, we weren't beaten, but we didn't win today for a few reasons. One was that massive lack of effort. It really was, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. But secondly, that low block by Newcastle, we couldn't seem to do anything. Anytime Anthony was there, he'd never cut on the outside, and every time Anthony was there, 3 defenders were around him. Same went for Sant. They were doubling, tripling up on both of our wingers. We didn't have the creative spark in the middle to break down that low block through the middle, and therefore the compact defence from Newcastle was working brilliantly, and we just couldn't do a thing. But as I said earlier, how in the fuck is that not a penalty on Jadon Sancho? Shin, full contact. Yes, Sancho had an exaggerated fall, like most footballers do. It's part of the game now. You might not like it, but it's part of the game. It's part of the language. That's a stonewall penalty. It felt today like so many decisions went against us. I think it would be disingenuous for me to just completely point the finger at Craig Pawson and say, you're the reason we lost this game, because that's not completely true. But you have to point out abysmal refereeing performances when you see one, and that was one there. But Newcastle today, I couldn't get my head around. Look, fair play to Eddie Howe and to what that Newcastle team is doing. Look, it's very, very simple. If you're an average team, right now Newcastle are an average team. If you're an average team, but you work hard for the full 90 minutes, you don't give your opposition, even if they're technically better than you on paper, you don't give them a sniff or a second on the ball, you're probably going to outperform yourselves. And if you are a good team like Manchester United are at the moment, and you don't have that basic work rate and that basic ethic of committing to every duel, to every tackle, you're going to underperform. That's the main takeaway from this game. That's the reason that game ended 0-0. United were just second to every ball. United came off the wrong end of every 50-50 tackle. Newcastle had full commitment, full desire, and we couldn't break it down. And, as I said, the reason we couldn't break it down is because we didn't have the creativity. The fact that we only made 1 substitute, I think Newcastle made like 5 subs in that game. Erik Ten Hag only made 1 substitution, bringing on Marcus Rashford. There wasn't anybody else on that bench that he trusted enough who changed that game. He could have gone for Garnacho. He could have gone for Iqbal. He could have gone for, hey, Kobbie Mainoo if you want to. Big up to him for getting on the bench. 17-year-old. He's going to make a real impact in the next couple of years. Watch out for him. But Ten Hag didn't trust any of them. And I don't think I can fairly consider that 2 points dropped. I think across the course of that 90-minute game, I think 0-0 would be a fair result. I quite enjoyed Casemiro in parts today, but I think Newcastle's midfield had the run of the game. Joe Linton, Bruno Guimaraes, in the Battle of the Brunos, there was only one winner and he wasn't wearing red. Bruno Guimaraes definitely played better than Bruno Fernandes today. It's these sorts of games, right? Bruno, man, you can be Eriksen when Eriksen's not there. What the fuck? Honestly, man, that was such an infuriating watch. Seeing United just that half a yard short. They probably did short. I shot it myself. Half a yard short to every tackle, to every ball, to every loose ball. And we were lucky not to concede from the set piece. We really, really were. But my word, I've got to reiterate this. How in the world did Fred miss that chance? Fred is a player who I think is heavily criticised, kind of hyper-criticised at points as well by United fans, but deserves all the criticism he's going to get today. We were speaking and we have spoken about the double pivot with Casemiro. Can it work? It works for Brazil. Can it work for Manchester United? It's not the same sort of setup. I ran through the 3-1-6 system yesterday and how Man United getting the overloads creates a stretch that breaks down low blocks, but Newcastle defended in such numbers and with such intensity that we didn't have any real chance. And I tell you what, Anthony, he's going to have to get more confidence in his game. He's going to have to add the fact that he can go on the outside because it makes him too predictable. At the moment that he's going to cut inside, it means that Newcastle were able today, instead of covering on the outside of Dan Burn, just cover on the inside because you know full well that he's not going to go on the outside. When he did go on the outside, there were 3 Newcastle defenders there sprinting back, full effort, full commitment. Something I have to say, right, about that first half, and I've seen it in the last few games, with Ronaldo, and this has got nothing to do, it's not his fault in any way, shape or form, but it feels like United's players are just almost overly looking for Ronaldo. Like we're going to ignore what might be a better opportunity and a better option and a better decision to try and get the ball to Ronaldo. And I've seen it so many times in the last few games, and again, it's starting to infuriate me. It's starting to really annoy me. And I don't think it's Ronaldo's fault, but it seems like we're just trying a bit too hard to get the ball to Ronaldo when there's better options at play. Anthony was certainly guilty with a few of the crosses that he was swinging in. I think everybody was guilty of it. And I find it really odd. But to go back to the point I made earlier about one man being missing. Now, Christian Eriksen, he hurt. The fact that he wasn't in that team there hurt us in 2 ways. Number 1 is the creativity going forward. Number 2 was playing out from the back with the ball. We did it in the first opening 5 minutes there today. We were good at it. We played it with a little bit of confidence, even though Newcastle were pressing. I was like, oh, that's new. That's nice. We weren't playing as direct. After that first 5 minutes, when Newcastle settled in that game, we couldn't play out from the back with the ball. Because we didn't have someone like Christian Eriksen who could find those vertical line-breaking passes. We were going side to side to side, De Gea boot. Repeat. Possession lost, Newcastle come back at us. We didn't play through the midfield at all today. We kind of like overlooked it. And it hurt us. It really hurt us. And what we've seen that's so good in the last few games is the fact that we do have that 3-1-6 system. We create the overloads and we just patiently play on the edge of the box until the space appears. We punish that space and we create a chance. We didn't do that. We had 2 shots on target today. We weren't creative enough. And even when we did create, Fred misses an open goal with the keeper stranded over there. And Marcus Rashford misses that. I didn't even get that header on target. You get that header on target and the keeper saves it, fair enough. But wide of the post, hugely, hugely infuriating game. That's the best way I can think of this to describe it. I don't think I've overreacted here. I think it's fair, absolutely, to call out the referee again for just what the fuck, man. As I said, it's a Stonewall penalty. Seriously, dodgy reffing, and it was just. I'm just annoyed. I think I'm really annoyed the fact that Newcastle were just winning every duel, first man to every second ball. Without that, it wasn't anywhere near as bad as Brentford. Of course it wasn't. We didn't lose 4-0, but there are a lot of similarities in that performance there that we saw in the game against Brentford. Ten Hag's going to be pissed off with that, and so he should be. Infuriating. That's the best way I can say to describe that game. 0-0. You let me know what you think in the comments.